So some thoughts about Psalm 18. I'm going to read some parts of the psalm and then share some personal experience as well. So about 2 to 3 years ago I was having quite a difficult time with what I called emotional stress. I had, as part of this, quite a lot of migraines and some symptoms that were physically quite debilitating. It was a time of transition following our move, and I was definitely in what I'd call a grief process. But also at the time I sensed a spiritual attack, so discouraging me in the sense of God's call and purpose for my life. I won't go into details, this is really not about me, but I did become quite desperate, and at one point I cried out to God. And I had a friend pray particularly for me, for God to rescue me from this struggle that I was in. And God did something really amazing. Let's just read Psalm 18 verses 4 to 6. The cords of death entangled me. The torrents of destruction overwhelmed me. The cords of the grave coiled around me. The snares of death confronted me. In my distress I called to the Lord. I cried to my God for help. From his temple he heard my voice. My cry came before him into his ears. Over a period of about 4 days, God really spoke into my heart at that time in various ways. So there was a worship song. There was a picture in my mind's eye one day as I was really telling God of my struggles and crying out to him. And there was a particular sentence in a sermon that just jumped out and really hit me on a day when I was just feeling done, just feeling like I couldn't really carry on. And that same evening was when I read Psalm 18, and it was just an amazing, wonderful confirmation of all the things that God had said to me in these different ways over that 4 days. So the next few verses after that, verse 7 onwards, are really a poetic picture of the anger of God at the assault on his child, and that's really spoke into my heart at that time. It's quite a long psalm, I'm not going to read all of it, but verse 16 to 17 it says, He reached down from on high and took hold of me. He drew me out of deep waters. He rescued me from my powerful enemy, from my foes who were too strong for me. Verse 18, they confronted me in the day of my disaster, but the Lord was my support. He brought me out into a spacious place. He rescued me because he delighted in me. And that bit there in verse 19 had really been part of one of the songs that God was speaking to me through. And then verse 28, You, Lord, keep my lamp burning. My God turns my darkness into light. With your help I can advance against a troop. With my God I can scale a wall. And that wall picture was really part of the image that I had in my mind as I was praying that God was going to rescue me from. And the very next day I was just in awe. I was well, and I had 11 days straight with no migraine at all, which at the time was really significant because I'd had such a lot. And even since then, ever since then, in my experience has been that the migraines I have had have been really quite easy to control with my medication when they really hadn't been before. So Psalm 18, it's a psalm that reminds me whenever I read it of that particular time when God reached in and just did a sudden intervention, made a sudden intervention and really transformed my situation. More recently, I've been struggling in different ways, in a different way, with times of real clouds of depression, despite a wonderful family, supportive friends, privileged situation. And in the last few months, I visited the doctor. I've been helped by medicine and therapy. So I'm telling you that because I don't share about this psalm as though I'm looking back from the destination or as though I've overcome all my struggles. This really isn't about me, but I can speak from experience of my God, who sometimes intervenes miraculously, but always accompanies me on this journey. So I can say with the psalmist, as per verses 1 to 2, it says, I love you, Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock, my fortress and my deliverer. My God is my rock in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn, or that is the strength of my salvation, my stronghold. Sometimes, perhaps maybe even particularly as Christians, in all the things we say about God and in the declarations that we're able to make about him from the Bible and from experiences of times when he's done amazing things, in the truth of that, sometimes in wanting to move on, we focus on perhaps this destination, whether it be heaven or the next thing here, having moved on from the struggle or whatever. And sometimes I think we kind of expect that and maybe require that of others as well. You know, sometimes when we're speaking of God and we're speaking of experience, sharing with one another, whether it's to a large group or just one-to-one, we might speak of past struggles, but what about what doesn't so easily shake off? What about those things that we haven't really overcome yet, that we're still walking through? I'm going to leave you in a moment with a song that I recorded a couple of days ago. I learned it nearly 20 years ago, but I would say I understand it better today than I did back then. He's still teaching this child. He's still teaching me. This God who does wonderful, amazing, miraculous things. At times, he walks with me in those days when the mountains don't seem to be moving.
Joy
God bless you.